Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. You know, boxing has different cultures. You have the culture where guys are dedicated 365 days a year. They're always in shape. They're always near weight whenever they're fighting for one of these sanctioning bodies that has early weigh-ins, interval weigh-ins. They're always within 5 pounds of their fighting weight. And I'm talking about the Klitschko brothers. I'm talking about Bernard Hopkins. I'm talking about fighters like Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. But there's a different culture. Right? This sport has an interesting past and present. There's a different culture. There are guys who are so skilled, they're so talented, they know how to fight, that these guys don't care that much about physical fitness. Right? These guys will have some flab on them. These guys will have a challenge making weight. Right? I'm talking about James Toney, Johan Guzman, and the guy I'm going to talk about here, Frankie Gavin. Now, let me just say, if you're in the latter group, you're always criticized, right? The press is always saying, hey, why can't you stay in shape, right? Boxing fans, gamblers, they want the best chance to win. And they look at a fighter who looks like he's out at the bar with them, Ricky Hatton. He's at the club. He's taking the sport as a sport. They look at those fighters with disdain. Now, somehow, that's what's happening to unbeaten Frankie Gavin. Gavin's nickname used to be Fun Time. The British press has been on him so much that Gavin himself is moving away from that nickname, right? The feeling is that Frankie Gavin likes being a celebrity more than he does a boxer. In fact, his inner circle wants him to lose weight to get back down to 140. Frankie Gavin doesn't want to give up those last 7 pounds. Gavin says he feels more comfortable at 147. That's where he's fighting. Many people are unhappy with that. But I'm just here to tell you that based on the films I'm seeing, Frankie Gavin is an excellent fighter. He's underrated. He, in my opinion, is much better than advertised, and people need to back away from his weight and actually look at what he does in the ring. Now, in the UK, things are so tough that people looked at his last fight against Curtis Woodhouse, a fight I thought that he dominated somewhat. And, of course, now we're hearing Gavin needed the later rounds to win that fight. Gavin is so advanced, he's all angles. And by that I mean, you know when you see a fighter and he has his hands up, he's blocking shots. Right? That's his defense. If you're a little bit more advanced, you don't need to have your hands up. You can literally stand in certain places in the ring. You figured out the angles. You can stand in certain places in the ring and know that when your opponent throws his jab, it's not going to reach you. Right? When your opponent tries to come across, you're going to be able to just take a step back and have it pass in front of you, right? Gavin is able to drop his hands, and he's a little bit different than Sergio Martinez. Martinez is an ambush fighter. So Martinez is playing the angles, but most of the time he's way outside, right? Frankie Gavin's a little bit different. Frankie Gavin is literally in your neighborhood. He's the guy in your neighborhood who you're shooting at. But he's figured out that the bullet's not going to get there, right? It's an advanced fighting style. I don't think fans appreciate it enough. So when he's fighting Curtis Woodhouse in an interesting fight, Woodhouse is a righty. Gavin is a southpaw. So Gavin literally is off at the side, right? A little bit away from Woodhouse's left jab. And as Woodhouse throws the jab, there are times in that fight where Gavin doesn't even need to move his head. In other words, Gavin has used his feet to be exactly far enough away from Woodhouse where the punch ends right here. Then Gavin is able to counter. Also, when Woodhouse moves in and Gavin's within range of Woodhouse's punches, Gavin's able to roll with the punch. This is advanced stuff. He's able to roll with the punch. And, of course, Woodhouse then throws it, misses. Frankie Gavin comes in, counters. To put it in one sentence, Frankie Gavin makes you miss, right? He is an excellent defensive fighter. If you're focused on Frankie Gavin's weight and his waistline, you're missing the brilliance in the ring, just like you would be if you were focused on James Toney's training habits instead of his in-ring performance, right? The angles, it's high-level stuff, right? This is a fighter who, quite frankly, has just figured out the importance of positioning in the ring. Let me also point out, too, that understand, I know young Muttley went the distance with him. I know Woodhouse went the distance with him. But people need to realize that Frankie Gavin has a greater than 60% knockout ratio. Gavin's a hitter, right? Gavin is a guy who, quite frankly, can take you out. In a couple fights, he's scheduled to fight Junior Witter, the hitter. I think Frankie Gavin in that fight has a chance at a stoppage. Let's talk about his opponent in this fight, Haroche Horta. Now, this is an interesting opponent because he's also a southpaw, so the angles are going to be a little bit different for Gavin than they would be against a righty. But understand that Horta doesn't have a lot of power, right? This is a fighter who, quite frankly, tries to use the angles himself. But his punches are wider than Frankie Gavin. And he has slower hand speed than Frankie Gavin. And he's not as blessed as Frankie Gavin is from the neck up in terms of dodging punches. Frankie Gavin just knows how to roll his head. Horta doesn't quite, right? I believe what Randall's going to have to do, not Randall, but Gavin. Thinking about Frankie Randall, a guy who once beat Julio Cesar Chavez. Let's get back to Frankie Gavin. What Gavin's going to have to do in this fight, in my opinion, is to come forward, force the issue, get Horta backing up. What he's going to find is that he can, again, based on angles, hit Horta with hooks. And that once he gets inside, he's going to find Horta to be vulnerable, right? Keep in mind, there's no reason why he shouldn't step forward because Horta has a less than 30% KO ratio, right? And Horta also doesn't bend at the waist as well as Frankie Gavin. So Horta should be there to get hit. I like Frankie Gavin in this fight. Horta has never been KO'd. So a KO might be a bit ambitious here. But I do feel that Frankie Gavin, who has been maligned in the UK press, is an elite fighter, and I believe he takes this fight this week against Frank Horta. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.